Well, first off, thanks for having me. My name's Jim, and I've been a Transformers fan since 1984.
What was that? Okay. Oh, you were pointing at the camera.
I did a direct address. I remember being a little kid on the playground, finding out that these robots were coming out, watching the commercial. Guys, broke before the law. It comes crashing. People. Should we start that over?
Yeah, let's start it over.
Yeah.
Over.
Yeah.
Hey guys, it's Optimus Primal, and we are here at New York Comic Con in 2019 at the Viz booth, and I am sitting with fellow Transformers fan and historian turned pro, Jim Sorenson, and we're here today to talk about the new book, Transformers: A Visual History. And before we get into this awesome book and talking about the nitty-gritty, why don't you talk about yourself and how you got involved in the Transformers franchise?
Well, the way I got involved in the Transformers franchise was that I was 8 years old in 1984, and they had this awesome commercial that had Optimus Prime barreling down the street, transforming, shooting the various Decepticons, and I mean, it was all anybody could talk about back in 1984 on the playground. We wanted the toys, we wanted to read the comics, we wanted to watch the show, and it finally came out months and months and months later, an eternity when you're 8, and you know, I really never stopped liking the franchise. You know, I've been on board pretty much for all the ups and downs, you know, through Action Masters and Pretenders back in the late 80s, early 90s, through Beast Wars, you know, through the Unicron trilogy, the Transformers film franchise, Transformers Animated and Prime, and a lot of those I've been fortunate enough to get the chance to make books of.
So, how did you get involved professionally into the into all this? So, obviously, like I'm a fan too. So, like I've been a fan since '84, just the same in the comics and the cartoons and seeing the commercials and everything else like that. And so, but how did you step into this professionally, where you were able to get, doing all the stuff that you've done?
Totally by accident. I was a big fan of the animation models. I found a website that had scans of one of the Japanese laser discs, and in the booklets for the laser discs, they had all these cool turnarounds, line art, black and white line art for the Transformers. And I thought, well, this is neat. I didn't even know what they were, and it's because it was all in Japanese. So I figured out what they were, and I tracked down a set of the Marvel Comics Bible that had the designs in it and the bios, and I had them all scanned in. I thought they were neat. I thought, well, I should really try and share some of these cool images with the fandom. And this was about 2005 or so, and I was thinking, maybe I could do a website, maybe I can do a fanzine or something. But I was ambitious and I had some time on my hands. I'd been laid off from work and I hadn't started my new job yet, so I had some extra time. So I made a pitch for IDW, and eventually they bought it, and that became my first book, which was called Transformers: The Ark, and things kind of snowballed from there.
Wow, I actually seen that book. In fact, I met Mark Watts a couple months ago. Actually, no, wait, I met him last year, and then I met him again, last month again, and he had that particular book for sale, and I was like, oh, that's really, really cool. In fact, like a lot of the artwork that he did, is involved in that, and because he did like the first Bumblebee, and he was like it took him like 2 weeks just to make that one. It's like amazing, right? So it's like I look at that and I'm just like wowed by the art. I'm sure you are as well.
So yeah, you're talking about the packaging art. So that was actually a different project. That was Transformers Legacy, but that was all of the packaging art from '84 through '95. So G1 and G2, and Mark was great. Mark was able to contribute some of the artwork and some of the commentary, which we didn't actually wind up using in Legacy, but we finally used in the Transformers Visual History book.
So. And of course, now we're talking about your Transformers visual history. It has a plethora of images dating back from Jim Shooter's original story treatment, that's awesome. Animation models to even some pre-production material, live action films. How did you get involved putting it all together?
Well, it was pretty simple. Viz reached out to me, and they said that they were interested in doing this Transformers comprehensive history book, a visual history book, and would I like to be involved? And I said, yes, please. Let's make this happen. And I'm glad they did, because it's hard for me, and I don't mean this from a place of ego, it's hard for me to imagine too many other people who would be able to cover the entire 35-year history of the brand. I mean, maybe someone like Pablo Hidalgo or Chris McFeely could take a stab at it, but there aren't too many names that come to mind. And it was really an honor that they came to me, and I tried to treat the project with the reverence that it deserved, to really respect the material.
Well, yeah, of course you have to respect the material. That's something that I've often believed, that like the material deserves to have that like respect, and the respect that you did put, it's well appreciated. It's so you can see it in the book, like how all the art's laid out. Like when I sat on the panel, I was just impressed by the fact that you guys said like you did things where like one page would change to the other, and it was like that's pretty cool. Like you guys like even thought that through when you were putting page for page. Like you had like one image that kind of like spread across the screen, the two pages, and then like the images that like actually matched. It was actually well done in that respect. So you have my props on that. And I'm also really impressed with the fact that you were able to get the Elita 1 and Orion Pax animation models. I was floored. I literally sat there looking at the book for like 10 minutes, just like wow. Because and I recently did like an Orion Pax video, so like and I was talking about this stuff. I'm like, I could have had this in my video and like talking about it. But like, so talk about the story, how you ended up procuring that. I know you talked about it on the panel, but we might as well like talk about it again. Like,
it's a good story.
It's a good story, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So there was a woman in Los Angeles who runs a furniture warehouse, and she would occasionally go dumpster diving when people would throw out office furniture. So she wound up in the 90s acquiring a bunch of chairs and tables and filing cabinets, and then very recently, I think it was actually the same weekend as HasCon, because I wound up doing that instead of going to HasCon. I wound up going out to Los Angeles to help her catalog what she'd found, because she went through it and she realized she had all this weird. She had no idea what they were. Weird production documents from the old Marvel animation studios. And it included all these Transformers animation models and storyboards. And I was, I'm again glad that she reached out to me so I could help her figure out what it was. I helped her sell the material because she wasn't a collector. She was a furniture saleswoman. But I was able to scan all the material in for my archives. And I was just kind of waiting for the right project to share that kind of stuff. And really the Elita 1 and the other female Autobots, these were my holy grails for a long time. So to be able to see them and share them, it's really special for me.
Yeah, definitely. And for the first time seeing what Orion, we kind of saw like part of what Elita 1 looked like in vehicle mode a little bit, because she was like hidden behind Optimus Prime as they were driving in, like heroically, like the last hero comes in, and then then they both transform. But Orion Pax, you never ever saw with his truck mode. We see Dion, which I'm of the firm belief that Dion is a mix of Dion and Magnum became Ultra Magnus. That's like my personal theory.
That's your headcanon? That's
my headcanon, yeah. I think that it's kind of like a mix of both, and that's the reason why Ultra Magnus doesn't like. He goes, my birthday? I don't even remember when that was. And the reason why is because he doesn't remember, because he was rebuilt from both of them, and so he's literally a mixture of both, so he doesn't remember what his activation is.
So he'd have 3 birthdays, wouldn't he?
Yeah, but he doesn't know it. He doesn't know it, and he also doesn't know he's a white Optimus Prime underneath, apparently, so.
Or even 4, really, because then in the course of the episode, Daniel gives him a new one.
Yeah.
So he might be the most birthdayed Transformer that there is, at least in your headcanon.
Well, also in my headcanon, Rodimus Prime also is the only Transformer to get laid. Yeah, so if you know what I'm talking about, and the only human when he wakes up and he's like, "What is this? It's breakfast, silly. Come on, we know that's like 80s censors. You can't talk about that on TV. Like if you remember the Nickelodeon, you can't do that on television. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It was great stuff back then. And so like that's of course I'm a Rodimus Prime guy. I know some people are big Ultra Magnus fans, but that's my headcanon with that.
Yeah, but then there's always Optimus Prime and Elita 1 in the Search for Alpha Trion episode. So, and you're not even counting Beast Wars.
No.
Because they got around.
True. Yeah. Well, you got the robots walking around without their chest plates on. Yeah. So as you were putting everything together, is there besides just the Optimus Prime, the Orion Pax and Elita 1, was there anything in this book that you were like, absolutely has to be in the book? Because I remember you said at the panel even there was like some stuff that absolutely had to be, in addition to that. So what, do you have anything that you knew?
Yeah, we had a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet, and there was the must-have column, which was one of our smallest columns, but anything that was in there we knew we needed to have in the book. We needed to have it big and showcase it. I would say the movie posters, the original G1 animated movie, both the American version and the Japanese version, there was no doubt in anyone's mind that they were going to be in the book. They were going to be large. We were going to feature them. There were some other pieces along the lines of those, but that was the kind of material that when we were reviewing, we'd say, "Oh, yeah, this one. There's no doubt." There are a few pieces that are that iconic, but that was one of them. I think the '84 promotional artwork that we restored, that was one of those that we knew had to be in there. And you've seen the book, right? So we were able to get the original sketches that made those pieces up, and those are featured in the book too. So stuff like that is so cool to be able to find and see and then share.
That's what makes this book so awesome. And I'm saying this as a fan. I'm talking it up because I was just impressed when I saw it. Like I opened it up and I was just like, well, like some stuff I'm like, okay, I've seen this, and not just say anything else, because like some of the stuff's out there, but like the quality, the print quality. Because even you had said like during the panel, you were saying like it's not. You see it like when it's small and you're like, okay, it's not that great. But then when you see it in the print, in print form, it's like, it looks awesome. And that's really goes to show you like how much effort was put into this book that and I think there was a couple other guys like that you guys worked together to put it together with, and you guys did an amazing job with it. Is there anything in particular that you ultimately had to cut from the book that you really wish was in the book?
So I would say there's very few regrets, but one of them is that our classic comic section, the Marvel US and the Marvel UK section, I could have easily given them each an extra 2 to 4 pages. It was just hard to find the room to put everyone in there. So I think we did a pretty good job of featuring like Andrew Wildman and Jess Senior. We did a good job getting their artwork into the book, but I would have really liked to have a nice like Jose Delbo piece. Call Me Longtooth would be the one. If I had one more page, that's what I'd have. It would be that, and maybe the Mark Texiera cover. From that, maybe I would have put that opposite the Jim Lee cover, and then gotten the Delbo piece in, just to get a few more of that era pieces represented. But it's just hard. We had 400 pages, and we still couldn't find room for everything, because 400 pages fills up quick when you're doing 35 years, right? I mean, that's only like 11 pages a year, right?
Yeah. You almost don't even have room for it all. Like, it's just... Transformers is just one of those brands that's been around for so long that like you can find stuff that like that even that some of the stuff is impressing. Like you even said, like the Orion Pax, the Elita 1, like that stuff is so impressive to have in the book. But the comic book stuff, like you can almost literally make an entire book just on Marvel US and Marvel UK alone.
It's funny you should say that. When we were sort of just starting the organization, and we were going through, I think Dave said that we had over 4,700 pieces that we reviewed for serious consideration. I did bring up, not as a super serious proposal, but I did at least float as a trial balloon the idea of, guys, we could do 400 pages just on the comics. Like, realistically, we could. We almost each of these video games would be hard, but each of the other ones, we could do like 200 to 400 page books just on this one subject, and they shot me down fast, as they probably should have. I that's not what this project was, but one could do that kind of project and it would be easy. Yeah, you'd run out of space on that, even just 400 pages just on comic books.
Yeah, absolutely. I would even say on the cartoon too. I mean, just the making of the movie. The fact that I have on my computer actually the PDF of the 1985 version of the movie, and the script is so different than what the finished 86 script was, and then of course in the 86 actual movie itself, and you look at it and you go, wow, they changed so much, like in Jester, like that kind of stuff. Like, you could make an entire book out of that. You wanted to say something?
Well, I was wondering which version of this. Are you talking about the one that has like Blaster doing the Resistance fighting on Earth? That one, or?
The one that I read, it like there was like a whole extra like piece of like Hot Rod, like, feeling sorry about the fact that like he had jumped in, and Cup and Optimus were kind of like not telling him, like kind of telling him like, no, it's okay. It was Megatron who was, the one who killed him. Of course I'm defending Hot Rod, but also it was the one where Megatron and all the Decepticons fight. Well, actually Megatron is dying, and then like they all fight in the crypt on Cybertron, and then all the life sparks end up in space, and that's what turns they meet the planet in Jester, which turns is Unicron, turns him into Galvatron.
Yeah, and that's the one that ultimately inspired Starscream's ghost, even though that all got cut.
Yeah, so like you said, like they can make an entire book just on the 1986. I mean, not just 1986 movie, but like the whole entire cartoon series. Maybe they can even explain where, why the cartoon ended, and why the Japanese picked it up, and ran with it and did their whole anime series that they did. But like I said, we could talk this Transformers stuff forever.
Yeah, I mean, just going through the Headmasters, Master Force, Victory, Zone, all that stuff. And we did try to represent that. I think each of those series was represented in the visual history as well. I mean, sometimes you're only talking maybe one very small image, but we at least tried to get a little bit of each of those into the book. I'm not going to swear Zone's in there. I think it is, but all the other ones, 100%. We had a nice Headmasters poster, and we had Victory and Master Force character designs. I think we got a Zone one in there.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I have to remember. I have to look back at the book, but yeah, I know that Victory was definitely in there. Star Saber, you have to. Like, Star Saber is just awesome.
And Overlord from Master Force.
Yeah, absolutely. And God Jinrai, which is Power Master Prime. So. Is it your love of the franchise started at the beginning, just like myself, seeing the cartoon, seeing that the animated commercials for the comics and the toys and everything else like that. That love of the franchise that you saw back when you were a kid, does that help you keep? Is that what keeps you going as a Transformers fan even today, or?
I think that. Well, no, it's a fair question. I think that your relationship with the franchise has to evolve over time, because you evolve over time as a person. When I was 8, I'm not the same person that I was when I was 18 or 28, and now I'm 43, and I have a 6-year-old, and I can see parts of the property through his eyes sometimes. So, the love I had as a kid is still there, but it's tempered by, maybe a more nuanced understanding of the characters' relationships and maybe some of the geopolitics. You could see what the concerns were, what the zeitgeist was in the 80s grit in the Transformers franchise. What were their concerns, right? They were after energy, energon. I mean, that was the 70s energy crisis. And then you could see sort of after the Cold War ends, how does that inform the franchise? Transformers animated, the Autobots are victorious. The Decepticons are this underground, cell of bad guys. And it's not the same as like two evil empires crashing, because that's not what was going on in the world in 2007. So my relationship to the franchise changes because the franchise's relationship to the world changes, and who I am as a person changes. Does that answer your question?
I think so. Yeah. You can see that the franchise changes so much, and it just keeps going on and on and on. I mean, I still think always keeping that core of Autobots and Decepticons is important, because it's just. Go ahead.
Well, what about the Maximals and the Predacons? That's a valid interpretation too.
That's Maximals and Predacons are a descendant of Autobots and Decepticons, so it's the same to me. To me, it's the same. War, just different. Names in a way.
Well, then what about the Viacons?
That's Megatron becoming tyrannical, taking over Cybertron, and then the Maximals have to liberate the planets because the Beast Wars are over and Megatron has won. So of course the ending is not well received with the grassy ending, but
prominently featured in my book is a full-page spread.
Of course. And Beast Machines is underrated story-wise. A lot of people give it a lot of flack. I personally, the only thing I didn't like was the ending. I felt that like the way it ended it was like a happy ending, but wasn't a happy ending in a way. It was like a bittersweet in a way. But I still enjoyed the storyline because it continued, and the animation was better. So, and it was a little darker, a little grittier. Like some of the humor was gone. So that's my opinion on it. But
in my mind, Beast Machines is the single strongest Transformers series, beginning to end. Some of that is because it's only 26 episodes, so it manages to tell a very, very tight story in that time. Like you could compare the first season of Animated to the entirety of Beast Machines, and I think that first season of Animated would probably compare favorably because it's such a tight storytelling unit. But then when they went to subsequent seasons, it's not that the story got weaker, it's that it wasn't as focused. It didn't tell a single story, and I think Beast Machines benefits from telling just one story. So to my mind, if it's something that you dismissed originally, it's worth a rewatch.
Back to Beast Machines. So.
Oh, we're still on Beast Machines.
Might as well. I mean, Beast Machines is like one of those storytelling. I do agree that it does benefit from that 26 episodes. It's just I'm guessing that because it's a solid one story, but there needs to be some of that fun stuff in the middle, and there wasn't that in Beast Machines, and I think that's probably why people dismiss it. I don't hate it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I hate it. I understand why fans dismiss it for what it is, but I still like it. But go ahead.
Well, I think that the reason fans didn't attach to Beast Machines is because they were so attached to Beast Wars, and they made a conscious break, especially in terms of some of the specific characterizations. And that was something that Hasbro had specifically requested, but it's something that I don't think the fans were necessarily on board for. And I think it's a legitimate flaw of the series that it doesn't smoothly follow from the series that it is nominally a sequel to. But I think if you can get past that, then it's a very strong series. And if you can't get past that, then you probably shouldn't watch it at all. If it not connecting 100% to Beast Wars bothers you that much, and like I said, I do think it's a legitimate criticism, then I think you owe it to yourself to not engage with the story.
Well, I honestly think that then, if that's the case, then I think that Transformers is such a great franchise that it allows room for things like Beast Machines and things like Michael Bay doing his spin on Transformers, which another thing that some fans absolutely love and some fans absolutely hate. And then people love or hate Transformers Animated or Prime or there are fans that are out there today who are big fans of Transformers, the movies, and they hate G1. I mean, with a passion, hate G1, and they go out of their way to troll people with like anti-G1 sentiments. But that's the thing about Transformers, is that it keeps changing over time, and but still has the core elements about what it is and why it's so important to us, at least as far as a franchise. And that's why I love it, and I think that's why you love it as well. So, but go ahead.
Well, I specifically called out in the panel that one of the things I love about the brand is how adaptable it is, how it's been so many different series. I mean, even as far back as the original Transformers series, you had your Generation 1 cartoon and comic book, and they were so different, the interpretations. Or season 3 of the Generation 1 cartoon, the original Generation 1 cartoon, it's such a big departure from seasons 1 and 2. And I think there were some people who didn't come along for that ride way back when. I mean, you've probably encountered some Rodimus hate.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had to defend Rodimus quite a bit for the past 30-something years. Have had to say, listen, don't hate on Rodimus so much. And then he's my favorite character, which leads me to my next question. Who's your favorite Transformers character?
Shockwave.
Space telescope, or space submarine, or laser blaster.
Put him upside down, and the handle becomes the conning tower, and he's a submarine. No, I loved Shockwave, especially the comic book version. The evil Spock, mirror universe Spock interpretation of the character. I just thought he was great. He was smart. He was powerful. I loved his tech spec. I thought the idea that he could control the entire electromagnetic spectrum was cool, and then he does so much over the course of the comic books, not just the Marvel comic books, which he does, but then, the IDW comic books. He's just this puppet master behind everything. So, yeah, and he was one of my first Transformers. My first one was Prowl, who's also a big logic guy, but Shockwave was probably one of my first 5. I got him for Christmas that year, and, yeah, he was just neato.
I agree. The whole laser blaster thing. In fact, actually, I have a customized Galactic Man that is painted purple. So it's Shockwave who's happy to see you, just like Megatron is. Which I often defend the choice of alt mode for them because of the fact that it goes to show you how evil they can be, that they transform into like the ultimate weapon. And even Shockwave, in that respect, transforms into a big ultimate weapon. So, but now, so that being said, who do you think gets the best stories, the Autobots or the Decepticons?
I think Starscream gets the best stories. He gets this great arc in Transformers Prime that really explores what the character can be. In Transformers Animated, again, especially Season 1, Starscream really drives the whole plot right from the beginning. Even in the Unicron trilogy, Starscream has this really compelling arc that he goes through. So, yeah, I'd say the Decepticons, specifically Starscream, get the best stories.
And I would probably say Galvatron there, because like that episode Web World that was a great, look into the psyche of an insane lunatic.
Web World may be the single best episode of the G1 Transformers series. It's certainly in the top 5. It's a great, not only an exploration of his psyche, but it's also this great satire, this great, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest sort of in Transformers, in kids' animation. They're really lambasting the American healthcare system before it was cool to do that.
That is true. Never ever thought about that. So you said in a previous, I guess in interviews or in forum posts, that you never liked the dearth of the lack of, I guess, of female Transformers in Transformers mythology, and meaning that there should be more. And obviously, I agree. But is there any female Transformer that you feel should be showcased more in a future Transformers story that hasn't gotten the spotlight that she deserves more?
None come immediately to mind. I mean, I think the writers of the various comics and cartoons appreciate having female characters to work with. So when they're available, they tend to get good showcase episodes. I mean, RC had, plenty to do in the movie and over the course of the Transformers series. I think the fact that they chose to make her a headmaster comes down to that sort of mindset. No pun intended. That they wanted to explore that character, and then when you get to Beast Wars, maybe Airazor is underexplored. That might be a good answer to your question. But Black Arachnia had a ton to do. Even Transmutate had a really cool showcase episode. Botanica and Beast Machines had plenty to do, and I think the series where female characters are available, the female characters tend to get good airtime. But yeah, Airazor. That's a very good answer. She didn't get that much to do.
I was going to say not only Airazor, but Elita 1 even more. And I know she had some spotlight in IDW, but like the G1 cartoon, girlfriend turned, hardcore leader of, that female team of Autobots in the G1 cartoon. Then when she had in her first appearance, I would love to see more of that Elita 1 myself, as well as Airazor. I would love to see Airazor get, especially a Transmetal, because she should have gotten her Transmetal form, and Rhinox as well, and Waspinator, and the toys that, I end up buying up all the Transmetal, toys, and I'm like, oh, come on, they're not Transmetals in the show, but yeah, that would be my answer. But since there's been so many different cartoons, comics, toy lines, now live action films, and all that kind of fun stuff throughout the franchise, is there any one particular line or series that's your absolute favorite? Like you had to pick, okay, this is the one, of Transformers, because yes, you can love Transformers Prime, but you love this one more. You can love animated, or Unicron trilogy. But what one do you find is your, version of Transformers?
I'm going to go with animated. It was such a fresh interpretation and so whimsical, and it's one of the ones where I got to have the most impact in terms of world building. I got to sit down with Derek and Matt and Marty and pitch them my ideas and have them say yes or no or give me feedback. So it's got a very personal connection to me, but it's also, I think, one of the best ones. Like I said, I think animated season 1 is the perfect Transformers season. It just has everything you want and nothing you don't. It's so streamlined. It's the Decepticons have such a real sense of menace. It's hard to make somebody menacing if they get beaten every week. But animated manages to do that by having them be in it so sparsely. And yeah, that's probably my Transformers television series.
What about the comic books? What would you say with the comic books? Because now you have Dreamwave, and you had, IDW and the IDW reboot, and of course the original Marvel comics.
I grew up with the Marvel G1 US comic, and right when I was starting to drift out of Transformers because it was getting a little goofy and it was off the air, at least in the States where I lived, and then the Furman run of the Marvel comics came out, and they were just so epic and sweeping, and they brought back all the old characters, and they introduced gods, and it was enough for me to get sucked back in. So it's hard for me to have another comic series I like as much. The IDW is great, and it's huge. I mean, they went for 11 years, and they were going, sometimes they'd have 3 or 4 books out in a month. So it's hard volume-wise to compete with that.
Right.
But, it came at a point where I was so much of a different person, like we were talking about earlier, that, they'll never be my comics the same way that the old Marvel ones are my comics.
I would probably say the same thing. The G1 Marvel comics, just especially, I love Furman's run towards the end, like that just the whole build up to Unicron, the Matrix Quest, and all that kind of fun stuff. It was just awesome. And I also really love Buddy Yansky's first like stint when he starts off when Shockwave first shows up.
The first 12 issues.
Yeah, right up until the end of the Shockwave era, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, because Megatron, to me, the way I look at Megatron is the G1 cartoon Megatron. I can't look at the Marvel comic Megatron like Megatron. I look at that's like a different Megatron to me. You know what I mean? So like the cartoon fits that role better, but. So when he starts taking over leadership of the Decepticons, I'm like, that's not Megatron. That's more. He's kind of like almost like Galvatron in a way. And I'm just giving my opinions, but Shockwave was like, you know, so cold and calculating that he ended up convincing Megatron to end up killing himself, you know, after Optimus Prime dies. So like, but like that whole run with trying to save the Autobots and save the Ark and Optimus Prime's head on a stick, you know, basically, was great, you know, as far as storytelling. But like I'm more of a G1 cartoon guy than anything else. But like you said, like when Furman came out with the comics, it was like, wow, like this is great stuff to continue on. Now with the big lead up to the Unicron with you know, issue 75 in the Marvel Comics, and then of course the 1986 movie. Have you backed Unicron?
So I thought about it, but ultimately I decided I don't have room in my house for it. And I made a rule with myself about 6 years ago. I won't buy any toys, really anything, but toys specifically are where I'd run into problems if I don't have a specific spot designated before I purchase it. So nothing I buy winds up in a garage or in storage. Everything I buy gets put on display right away, or I don't buy it. So Unicron, unfortunately, did not hit that cutoff, and I'm very strict with myself about it.
So then the real question is that what friend are you going to convince to buy it that they have space to display it so that you can get a chance to play with it? Because I would love to, because just like yourself, you know, got kids, want to play with this thing, want to see how it plays out. So, you know, who are we going to convince to try and get their own space for it?
All of you, buy Unicron.
They've got until midnight tonight, which is when we're recording this, but probably won't go up until afterward, unfortunately. But it has reached production, which is
1,500, and then they stopped counting.
Which is kind of wrong, because they should have gotten to 9,000 so they could start the Dragon Ball memes. See, the over 9,000. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure, Jim.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's really been a lot of fun.
So we're going to wrap this up, guys. It has been an absolute blast at New York Comic Con. So hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe. Check out my other videos as well. And as always, guys, until next time, till all are one.